We were discussing the introduction to agrochemicals, and we have discussed about herbicide, fungicide, fumigants and rodenticide, and some of the examples of germicides which are used for healthcare, industrial use, and they are basically institutional use and residential use. But most of the insecticides, they are widely used as a household product, like to eradicate cockroaches, baits which are commonly available in the market. They are also the part of, they comes under this agrochemicals, as the part of agrochemicals, because these type of like termite, that is basically in the soil. So, that has to be eradicated to protect the larger trees, and then we can think of other uses of the agricultural uses in the low potency, not only termite, not only cockroach, but rodents, not only in the field but in residential area also, and for taking care of other effect like herbicides, not only road path, everywhere industrial town also, they also require the herbicides to eradicate in masses. Now, one aspect is there of herbicide that I will discuss here. If we go century back or more than that, you will surprise that in the underdeveloped countries, whole village families, all the families including kids, like in not only India, everywhere where these herbicides were not developed, they were plucking the herbs or unwanted plant from the fields, and it's hours and they are spending in the field, and that has caused their health problem, hunchback, and then there was no literacy, since they are 24 hours a day, or whenever they find the time, they are plucking the unwanted plants, and that is the biggest hassle. And this problem was solved by the herbicide, which started maybe probably in 1940 with the development of the chemical for herbicides. Earlier inorganic herbicides were used, and with this development, this has solved several social problems, because the herbicide they grow herbs or unwanted plants, they grow like the normal crop, or they take away the moisture, nutrient and several other things from the field, and they compete with the growth pattern of the crop which is desirable. Similar is the case of this fungicides. Earlier the fungicides, they are spoiling the crop like anything, and there was no way out to eradicate the fungus, although some inorganic fungicides were there earlier century ago, but their effect was not there and not selective. They may be phytotoxic in nature, they kill, instead of killing the fungus, they may kill the plant. So, all these problems gradually come up with the development of science, and nowadays we have number of fungicide which are very safe, very potent, and maybe health issues are not associated with them. Now, insecticide, the same problem is there. Insecticide used to destroy the total field within the shortest span of time. With the development of insecticide, these things were also resolved. So, these are the advantages of the modern techniques or the modern development of the agrochemicals. Now, the only concern with agrochemicals is the environmental concern and the health issues. Now, these health issues are ranging from not only the human health, but they are from the ecological concern are there, because some of the pesticide, they enter into the fruits, and which we take as a residual of, they are in the part of our food, and they causes the health issue. There is a residual effect of agrochemicals which are there, and that issue, that is a sticky issue which remains there, and as an agrochemical scientist, they thoroughly investigate these issues also, but it is a very slow process, because what metabolites will be formed by agrochemicals, what are the necessary steps has to be taken to stop this, what are the issues associated with the human health. All these issues has to be dealt in this topic, like agrochemist has to look into these matters, because the biggest issue is like drinking water. When any pesticide, it gets leached out in the groundwater, and that poses the health threat to the human being, because of they are present in the drinking water. That issues has to be taken care of, and all these things are studied thoroughly, which will deal with in the coming lectures. So, this thing agrochemistry focuses on the scientific advancement with the practical application of the to address agriculture challenges while considering environmental sustainability. Now, this is the key aspect agrochemistry, that not only take care of the human health, but also the environmental health, also the pollution, also the underground water. These are very sticky issues. Day by day advancement is taking place to these challenges, but the biggest drawback is that end user, that is the farmer which is using that, they become the culprit of these insecticides, and there is no way out, but only thing that research has to be carried out in this direction also, and lot of research is going on throughout the world, where lot of institutionals like WHO, UNO, and another is Pesticide Action Network, which basically monitors strongly about the toxicity level of the pesticide which are used. Now, because these are the issues where they impact the larger section of the humans, not only the farmers, but we are as a consumer of this crops or the fruits, vegetables, they may have the residual effect of pesticide residues present in these crops, on the fruits, in this our eatables, and they will affect our health. And also the animal health has to be protected along with this, because the animals or in the field, cattle are there, they are grazing, they may be affected by this issue, by several side effect of the herbicide or insecticide they are used in the fields, and poultry, they are also affected. So, this is a vast area where the agrochemistry needs drastic research, and it is a continuous process, and this has been taken care by side by side, but still issues are there which will come up in the forthcoming lectures along with the individual topic when it is concerned. And so, these are all belong to the scientific investigation, where once the pesticide is formed, tested in the lab, but it requires a lot of testing from soil, from the pollutant, from drinking water, and their leaching effect, their effect on the soil with the different pH, not only that, but to the human being, to the air where it is spread, it is likely to spread in the air, and then the other thing they are largely discussed. So, all the classifications which we discussed earlier, they are basically target pests, insecticides. They are, once they target pests, they are sprayed on the plants, they are absorbed by the plants, and they may be absorbed by the fruits, which may reach to us the traces of the insecticide. And then the fungicides also, once they act on the plant, and then all the fungus is killed, but what happened to the residual effect? They are also the part of the agrochemical study under they are also studied under the agrochemicals. Now, this fungal infection which you are seeing there, and then lastly the herbicide we have already discussed, they are the rodenticide, they pose the rodents pose the biggest threat. So, they destroy in the not only the crop by not only the crop, but even the human health, they poses the threat in the houses, we are all aware of this thing. And acaricide, this also you are showing the ticks on the cow, they need to be handled carefully, because any acaricide which may be absorbed by the skin, they may cause a dermal toxicity, which needs to be considered. They are all the part of the research of the agrochemistry. Now, next is the other classes. These are the repellents, insect attractants, plant growth regulators, they will be taken later on. Now, the mode of entry is the biggest things systemic. They basically pose the threat to the human being also. Not only the, although they kill the insect, but they also pose the threat to the human beings. Similarly, contact, stomach and repellents. Now, the fumigation, this poses the larger threat because fumigations are the vapors. They are carried over by the air and they stay for a smaller time in the, they are easily vaporable, they are already vapors, and then they pose the threat to the environment, and that is the biggest threat which we face. Although the person who is using this, they are asked to wear the mask so that inhalation is not there of the vapors, and the applicant who is using it, they are protected fully. Similarly, the warehouse where it has to be put in, because fumigants are, their lifespan is very short. So, that has fumigants, all the godowns has to be covered properly, so that its effects remain there, because repeated use of fumigation may not be good for the crops or the stored material or the persons who are using it. Next is the, which we have already discussed, the abdominal cramp, nausea and vomiting. These are the part of practically every insecticide which you use. Skin and eye, they come, farmer directly comes, the insecticide directly come to the contact with the skin and eye with the insecticide which they are using. Lungs, inhalation, they are asked to use properly, cover the face or use the mask so that to protect them. Liver damage, once this goes through in the body, liver, they may damage the liver. But the biggest problem which arises the use of pesticide is the headache, dizziness and seizures. They cause the neurological impact and they may not be recovered from these diseases, and they are very they pose the very harmful effect. So, pesticide, any pesticide which we are using or we are recommending to the farmer has to be studied thoroughly for these impacts. And then mental illness, cognitive impairment. Now, these are the time bound issues. Basically, with time, if the farmer or their families are continuously get exposure to the pesticide, kids may have the mental illness, cognitive impairment at very younger age. Endocrine disruptor, they are the basically they secrete the hormone to the, they are the hormone secretor. Basically, they keep the balance approach towards the how much hormone is needed for different functions like thyroid etc., and the reproductive purpose, the testes, ovaries, what type of hormone is needed and what is the quantity. But with the insecticide, they are the they disturb the harmony of the endocrine hormonal secretion. So, this has to be taken care, and this is poses very serious issue to the mankind. Reproductive and development disorder, basically they may have a teratogenic effect, that is the embryo toxicity that may be produced, and they may any pregnant woman who is present or using this insecticide, that they may have the effect on their child. Twitching and tremor, that is the research, lot of research is going on, and one of the aspect which has come up, that mostly pesticide, they may cause Parkinson disease, and that poses a threat to the mankind. Carcinogen effect, which effect is observed after a long use of pesticide, and the genetic effect, which basically is this effect is basically come after ages, generation after generation. Toxicity criteria of pesticide. Now, defining toxicity. Toxicity is the capacity of the substance to cause harmful effect in living organism. For pesticide, two important terms are there: toxicity, risk hazards. Toxicity and risk hazard, they go side by side. If any pesticide is not very toxic, but it may be associated with the risk which we have discussed earlier in these two slides. They may pose the higher risk. It may not be highly toxic, may not cause the immediate death or any of the immediate effect, but long term effects are always there with these type of insecticides. So, toxicity is evaluated in the toxicology laboratories. Toxicity is expressed in quantitative terms: LD50, that is lethal dose, LC50 lethal concentration. Now, LD50, LC50 is the concentration of substance that kills 50% of the reference organism. LD50 is the dose of the substance that kills 50% of the reference organism. Now, LD50 is expressed as the amount of substance in milligram per kg of the body weight required to kill. Low LD50 value means it is high toxicity. Now, I will give an example. If any pesticide having the toxicity, mammalian toxicity of the order of say 10 milligram per kg, and another pesticide which is having the pesticide of the 100 milligram per kg. Now, which will be more toxic? So, this calculation is done like this. If this suppose a farmer or the any user of 50 kg, so if the pesticide having the LD50 10 milligram per kg, so the total requirement to kill that user is 50 into 10, that is 500 milligram, but for that is half gram. Now, if the person of 50 kg and using the insecticide or pesticide or any toxic material having LD50 100 milligram, so if you multiply 50 into 100, it amounts to be say 50 100 gram, that is roughly 5 grams. So, that is the amount which is required by that person, that is the amount required to kill that person. So, lesser the LD50 value means high toxicity. So, that is the meaning of this LD50. So, any pesticide which has the lower LD50 value has a high toxicity. Now, there are two factors: acute toxicity and chronic toxicity. Acute toxicity is defined as the adverse effect immediately or at the short time interval after single or multiple administrative or administration of a substance within 24 hours or short duration in relation to the exposure or the effect. The effect usually showed rapid onset. That means any toxic substance which shows the effect, deadly effects within 24 hours and it is not prolonged. So, that normally is termed as acute toxicity. So, that has to be dealt very carefully, and but chronic toxicity, which is adverse effect is shown in the due course of time, it is a continuous process, and continuous exposure it may show the effect very late. So, this thing has to be taken care of, and these two effects which we have already discussed here in this slide, like acute and chronic health effect on the human side. Abdominal cramps and nausea, vomiting, they may be observed immediately, but they are not very threatening unless it goes continuously. Skin and eye damage, that may happen immediately, or if the doses, the toxicity is very less, it may take longer time. But lungs and respiratory tract disorder, they may not be immediately, they may take time, or that depends on the doses and toxicity of the pesticide to be used by the farmer. Liver damage, that again is observed at the later stage. Headache, dizziness, seizure, that may come up easily within the few days time, effect of that. So, that may lead to the acute effect on this. Then the next is mental illness, that is also may be observed after a quite long time. What is happening to the person, endocrine and disruption, and that is basically may be observed at the later stage. Reproductive development disorder, that may also be fall under the chronic disorder, means repeated use of pesticide by a farmer or any community, that may be observed at very later stage. Twitching and tremors, they may be observed at later stage or maybe immediately, that depends on the type of pesticide we are using. Carcinogenic effect, cancer, basically that will be observed definitely after repeated use, and that is say after a very long time, but this disease or the cancer may be precipitated by the use of some insecticides. So, these are all the harmful inheritable genetic effect. Naturally, with this term it will be observed in the generation after generation after a very long time. Now, these are the risk associated with the pesticide and the toxicity. Here now the LC50 also deals with the concentration, where we are dealing with the liquids, where the concentration or is required of the solution form. And the next is this recommended criteria for the classification. This criteria is given by WHO, and this is clearly indicates if the any compound or any substance is having, in this case is the pesticide, oral toxicity is extremely high, that is LD50 is less than 5 milligram per kg. That means a person of, you can very well, if the person is has a body weight of 50 kg, how much milligram it required? Just nothing. Then, but the dermal toxicity, which is another aspect, that is absorbed through skin. Now, this is another type of toxicity. Then skin absorbs, and while using any insecticide, if the toxicity is less than 50, it is also considered extremely hazardous. Similarly, highly hazardous pesticides, they are having the toxicity or the LD50 value between 5 and 50, and for dermal toxicity is 50 and 250 to 2000 or 200. So, they are considered as highly hazardous. Then slightly hazardous, that is over 2000 and over 2000 for both oral and dermal toxicity, and unlikely to present acute hazards, they are the 5000 or above. Now, with this, if any compound is highly toxic, why not it should be banned? And if it poses high risk, high health risk, that in this slide, toxicity and risk hazard, if compound is highly toxic, then most of the insecticides, they are banned. And for monitoring this, we have the several agencies which take care of this. One of the biggest agency is the Pesticide Action Network. They monitor throughout the world, they take care of this thing, that any pesticide which is posing the threat to the mankind, that should be banned. They recommended to the governments, different governments, for banning of the pesticide for their use. And risk and hazards, they are basically, they are the endocrine disruptors, they are banned and highly recommended to ban immediately. And the carcinogenic effect, if once they are observed by the testing agencies, they are also put under the banned list, pesticide ban. The examples are like recently Government of India has banned monocrotophos. World over it was banned last year, but the Government of India has banned in the month of November or December last year. Now, another is that if the anything is causing damage to skin and eye, then advisory is given to the farmer that while using pesticide, use proper mask, use proper clothing, so that these does not affect your skin, your eyes, and you are not exposed to the inhalation, so that respiratory tract effects are minimized. Now, and all the advices are given to the farmer that they must use these type of mask, cloths properly covered, and the advices are given to them that once you use it, and after using it, properly wash your hands, properly wash your hand with the soap, and properly wash your eyes, and take care of all the necessary precautions which are given by the manufacturer, which are printed on the bottles itself. And one of the biggest precaution which is there for almost all the pesticide is that keep away from the children. So, that all the pesticide must be kept away from the children in the family, because they are not tuned to the these type of effects, or they can eat, they can drink, so they may pose the threat. So, these are the general advisory to the farmers, and other effect which is other things which one should observe beside the fact that they must wash the hands and cover the face, and others are they should not use this or throw away the bottles of after using the pesticide in the dump yard. So, they may pose the threat, or they not use this pesticide near the kettles or the where other or the animal has been or the animals are kept or for other purpose. So, because they may be exposed to these pesticide and they may pose the harmful threat to them. So, these are the precautionary measure they must have, and one can easily view this insecticides. Now, especially the biggest threat comes from the insecticides, that is once they are used, they are mostly basically if they are systemic in nature, what is done? They will be absorbed strongly by the crops, and these agrochemists they study thoroughly the residual effect of these pesticides. So, human beings are safe, and nowadays these things are taken care properly, so that these pesticides are very safe to the human being. Now, not only that, there is another branch which takes care of these herbicides, that bee toxicity. Bees are basically, we are all, they are the honey bees, and the pesticide they are basically taking the, they are sucking the flowers for their making the honey and for all the purpose. But if the insecticide is there and bees while they are sitting on the flower, they get killed, and then they poses the threat to the environment, that bee killing. So, this is one of the important aspect, that bee toxicity is also tested using these for these insecticides and for the, so that these things are not killed. And another thing is that the nowadays the element and testing on the animals are banned. So, once you have to test any of the insecticide or the pesticide, this has to be tested through some other methods, and final testing, first it has to be cleared from by the in vivo and in vitro testing in the lab, and then animal protection agencies are there which by and large oppose the animal testing for these pesticides. All these are precautions they are taken by the different agencies like Pesticide Action Network, WHO, UNO, they are all involved in the broader aspect to for the betterment of our environment, for the betterment of our world. But these crops has to be protected from the insects, and when they have to protect it, some way out should be there, and a lot of research is going on in this field of the agrochemicals, because ultimately food is necessity. We have to eat the food, and for the sake of our life. So, all these things basically makes the complexity, increases the complexity of the agrochemical industry. Lot of government agencies, they are for this, that pesticide should be very safe, it should be thoroughly checked and properly investigated before putting it to the market. So, nowadays governments, all the government authority boards are very active to look into these sticky issues. So, with that I think toxicity is I have already explained the toxicity, and these are the key points. Low value of LD50 means high toxicity. Here I will come again to this slide. That means if this is put under extremely toxic hazardous, means they are so fatal that may kill, because there is such a small amount that farmer, if it is using this kind of insecticide, that will be killed immediately by chance if it is inhaled. And for these type of pesticide in moderately hazardous, they are classified as moderately hazardous, their LD50 is quite high, so they are less toxic. So, inhalation of this much amount is not very much possible unless or until it is done intentionally. So, all these aspects are taken care by the government, and we must take care of these things. Now, this recommended classification of the toxicities are not the end. Lot of toxicities are nowadays assessed. They are oral toxicity, dermal toxicity, reproductive toxicity, and cytotoxicity, and all these toxicities, all the factors are taken care of for the different aspect to make the better world and to make the better and healthy world, not only for us, for the others like animal kingdom also. They are also exposed to these type of chemicals to give the environment healthy and free from these toxicants. Anyway, now I want to say thank you for this lecture, and that's all.